the college doesn't just pay like the college. The college brings industry to the place where it's at, the entire city, the entire town. So therefore, if the college is affected, then the entire town is affected. So yeah, that's a huge reason for you guys to want someone collared for this crime, whether it's the right person or the wrong one. There's a financial benefit there. Now, am I reaching way out there with the conspiracy theory?
But they're saying in 2023, fall acceptances also saw an increase. The early verdict was that U of I cared about its students, and they wanted to complete their education at the U of I. And I'm sure, thank God for Brian Koberger's quick arrest, and I'm sure that set plenty of students and parents' minds at ease on allowing their kids to come back to campus, finish it out, and ultimately graduate. So when Scott first took over as president, he faced the daunting financial hole, he called it. The enrollment numbers were down, employment rate had been increasing. So UI's chief financial officer, Brian Foisey, told Scott that the university only had 18 months worth of cash left before it became insolvent. So that's not long. Green said the university was on the verge of losing $22 million. So he set a campus-wide goal to save the university $14 million.
So therefore, if the college is affected, then the entire town is affected. So yeah, that's a huge reason for you guys to want someone collared for this crime, whether it's the right person or the wrong one.
Some say it's a shocking outcome to a case out of Ventura County. A Thousand Oaks woman will serve no prison time for stabbing a man more than 100 times. She was found guilty by a jury, but she was also found to be in a cannabis-induced psychosis.
NBC4's Comer Dickerson joins us live from the Ventura County Courthouse with the outrage from the family of the man killed and what the prosecutor has to say. Karma.
Back to that, for sure. Innocent until it's like coming home, man. It's like coming home. How have you guys been? It is 71 degrees in Miami. Ironically, that's kind of cold. The weather puzzles me sometimes, like certain temperatures or certain feelings. And I'm like, if it's this temperature, it should feel like that. But like 71 should feel a little warmer. But it doesn't in Miami. But I guess that's also because, you know, the wind is blowing off of the ocean, so it makes it a little colder. I learned that living in Savannah, that we were right there off the ocean too. So the wind would make it a little more chilly, man. I'm not ranting, I'm not rambling. I'm thinking about you guys because, like I said, I hope everything is well with you. We are into a new year now. We're coming close to the back end of the first month of 2024. So happy New Year to you guys, man. If you missed the last video. Oh man, I'm just watching things, and you know, shout out to Lil T. She's checking on me in the comments. Hey, how you doing, Innocent? Haven't heard a lot from you. Hope everything is okay. So we got to talking back and forth, and she was telling me about some videos that she had watched, and she suggested that I go watch them, which I did. I watched both of them, so I want to make sure I don't forget it and say it now. Like I said, thank you to Lil T, and one of the videos that she suggested was from True Crime Plunder. Never heard of this creator before, but I do suggest, you know, you go check out the video. It's an hour-long video, so at first, you know how short minds are now. I'm like, okay, that's a lot, and it's really not, but like our minds are programmed differently. We want things in small doses, but I said, let me check it out. She sent it to me, and as soon as I clicked it, it's I mean, I don't know, the way my mind is set up, she got me from the door. It's like how I read books. If you don't really get me, you know, in those first couple of chapters, even if I finish the book, I'm not going to be engaged and entertained. So with this young lady, she did. She got me like, it was like a fishing line. As soon as she had me on the hook, she was very good at, you know what I mean, at least reeling in my attention and keeping it until the video was over. I had no problem watching the entire hour-long video. So I suggest, like I said, you check it out. But she's talking about this book. Speaking of books, that if I remember correctly, the University of Idaho, the college president wrote, right? And she's even saying, you know, I may misspeak here a few times, hopefully not about anything significant, But you know, small details. But she's saying that she didn't even know that the book apparently came out last year, maybe late November, early December or something like that, or late December, somewhere in that time span. Excuse me. But once she did find out, you know, that the book was out, I guess she's an avid reader, so she wanted to check it out. And so her entire video is her assessment of the book, you know, the thoughts that she walked away with from reading the book. And I want to talk about her thoughts and some thoughts that I had hearing her thoughts about the book. So I don't know if you guys are aware. You probably are. You're usually, you know, up on everything going on. But for those of you who live in a bubble like me, it's confirmed. The book is out there. The University of Idaho president, I'm pretty sure that's who it was, but somebody high ranking, I'm almost positive it's the president, wrote a book. And in the book, he speaks about the tragedy that happened at the Idaho Fort House. So one of the first things that stuck out to me, I took notes, so I'm going to go by my notes, man. And keep in mind, now I'm jumping out of the window. I'm not doing due diligence here. I'm just hearing, hey, man, the story is about the president writing this book. So my mind automatically, without doing any research, but I'm not sharing this with anybody. This is internal. I'm thinking, okay, here we go. This is the beginning of the for-profit era of the, you know, the Idaho 4 tragedy. And obviously it isn't, because the media platforms and, you know, creators and other people, et cetera, have already been in the for-profit. You know, they would sensationalize, make up things, whatever, even over-exaggerate the truth. You know what I mean? You know, not even over-exaggerate, but I mean, just keep speaking about the truth over and over. And some people do it because their heart's in the right places, but there are those we know are doing it for profit, you know. So I'm aware of that, but I'm just thinking in a broader sense where it goes to like mainstream for profit, because even some of these media platforms, these well-known ones, the News Nations, your Nancy Graces, the Datelines, they're not still like mainstream in their arena. Like, we talk about mainstream when you think of news. This is my opinion. You guys correct me or disagree if you do. I'm thinking about like the CNNs, the Foxes. These people, you don't see them honing in on the Idaho 4 tragedy, even if they've mentioned it, which I'm sure they have. And I'm sure you meant to say honing, sir, not honing. Tighten up. It's not their daily, day-to-day bread like it is and has been for News Nation or Nancy Grace or Coffee After Dark. Like, so that's what I'm speaking about. I'm saying this is the beginning of it branching out to the, you know, the mainstream authors. And I know the president isn't a mainstream author, but I'm saying this is the beginning of that, because trust me, guys, I'm going to go more into that thought, but I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it how I ended it. That era is coming. I want to draw the distinction again. It's already here on the lower tiers. There's going to come a time, I think one of the famous authors already have, or was talking about he's going to release a book, one of the top tier authors. There's probably, we all know this, we've spoken about this, I've seen this in social media circles. Somebody, if we're allowed to see it, is going to make an Idaho 4 movie. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure they're going to be documentaries. Then somebody might remake. It's going to enter that arena. And the significance is, since it's going to happen anyway, like all things in human history, and there are going to be people who tell the tale, who tell the story, who remember it in sensationalized ways and like ways that are absolutely fabricated and far from what actually happened. And they know this. They're not just mistaken. They're doing it on purpose, like we see these creators do. Since that's going to happen, we can't stop the conversation, but we need to encourage the voices of those who will tell the story in whatever arena they're in as it actually happened. I hope the message that I'm trying to portray that gets there. The story is going to be told. We can't just, the liars are going to lie. The sensationalizers are going to sensationalize. What do we tell the people who are actually going to do it honestly? Don't say anything. No. If you're an author who's going to write honestly about this, yes, please, we need you to write. If you're a producer, director, whatever, you know what I'm saying. You're going to do this in your arena and you're going to do it honestly. We need you to do it because those other people are going to be out there. But that was, I gave you the beginning and the end. So let me just dig into it a little bit. When I was thinking that, to go along with that thought, like I said, we have to ask ourselves, when the authors start to write about it, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? When the movie creators start to create movies about it and documentaries about it, what's acceptable and not acceptable? I want to reiterate, this is going to happen anyway. All these thoughts are coming because, True Crime Plunder gave a review of the book that Idaho University of Idaho's presidents wrote. He wrote a book. She gave a review of it. I'm reviewing her review of the book and sharing thoughts I had listening to her review. And that's just a huge part of it. I know I'm hammering here, but it's going to happen. And so there are going to be questions we have to ask ourselves. One of them being, don't we want honest people telling the story in their arena, not just about this tragedy, but about human history, and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And that's where you get into the weeds a little bit, because we all have different opinions about that. But yeah, that was one of the first things that popped in my mind. As more as I listened, because remember I told you I jumped out of the window, I was already assuming. So I was thinking he wrote a book about the Idaho 4 tragedy, and according to her review of his book, that's not what happened at all. What happened was he was writing a book. I can't even remember his motivation or inspiration. He was writing a book according to his, how he tells the story. And in the process of writing that book, actually, when he was either complete, he was done with it, and it was in the next stages of being, finally published, or when he was almost done with it. So either way, this was in no way, according to him, inspired by that tragedy. That tragedy actually happened on the back end of him completing that book. And so he in some way felt compelled to speak about what was also going on in real time in the book that he was writing. And that's how the Idaho 4 tragedy got connected to his book. Now, obviously, I want to reiterate, I wasn't there. She's not even saying this. She's saying if you read the book, this is how he's talking about all types of things in the books. And when he talks in the book, and when he talks about this is what he says. That, the book wasn't inspired by the tragedy at all. The tragedy actually happened on the back end of him completing the book, and so he felt compelled to speak about it. So that kind of changed my thing about his motivation. Because initially I was also thinking that maybe he's one of the for-profit people. Is he one of them, or is he not? You know what I mean? What is his motivation? But once he told me, hey, this was just something that happened, in the course of what I was already, it's hard for me to think, okay, well, yeah, of course he still could just be doing it for profit. But for me, it lowered the chances that's why he was doing it, as it pertains to writing a book, because he was already writing it. So, which leads me to my next thought. It's a conspiracy train here, guys. And forgive me, I'm drinking Coke, not water. Y'all caught me. It is what it is. Don't drink Coke. It's a conspiracy train, guys. But I ask myself 1,000 questions. I'm always by myself. I'm always thinking too much. You know what I mean? I'm always working. I'm thinking too much. Trying to listen to some music or YouTube video to take a break, vacation from my mind. But I can't always. So, and in my thinking, I ask myself questions. And one of the questions I still say and I ask myself about this guy is, what was his motivation? I'm going to tell you what I walk away thinking to myself. My thoughts don't mean any of this is true. It just means this is what I concluded. Like, True Crime Plunder, she had her conclusions about his book, and this is my conclusion. But the questions I asked before I tell you what my conclusion were was like, what is this guy's motivation? So is he including this in his book just for profit? Is he literally, because I can see him being in a situation, I can see myself being there, and anyone else. Hey, this happened while I was doing this. So yeah, from a very honest place in my heart, I just wanted to share my sincere thoughts about it, because there were several things that he mentioned that he went out of his way to do, not so he could say, look, I'm trying to prove to you that I'm sincere, but other people noticed that just by him doing certain things that they would come to him and say, well, we know your heart's sincere here. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have no reason to believe. Credibility is a thing for me, guys. I have no reason to believe, after just watching True Crime Plunders, and for one video that was an hour long, people speak to me. This lady communicated to me that I had no reason to question her character. I'm sorry. Is that a rush to judgment? Possibly. But I read people. If you watch my channel, you hear me say that. It doesn't take long for me to see things about people, and I usually say, you're either who you appear to be or you're a great actor. I have no reason to believe that this woman, who came off as a very sincere and very trustworthy and believable woman, at least in this arena, I had no reason to believe that what I was seeing before me, it wasn't exactly what it is. So therefore, it gives credibility to what she's saying. So now when she tells me what this guy is saying in the book from her perspective, it also, just because she's referring to what he's saying in a certain way, it also lends credibility to what he's saying. Much like I told you guys, for me, part of believing Brian is innocent is the fact that Ann is co-signing and going so hard to say that he's innocent. And what I've seen in her character, either she is who she appears to be or she's a great actor. What I've seen is this is a woman who you can trust. Now, there are great actors out here, but there are also people who are simply who they appear to be, and they're good people. And I believe she's one of them. Therefore, if she's co-signing something or fighting for something, her doing that alone gives credibility to whatever she's co-signing or fighting for. So I'm saying that to say, when I ask myself about this guy, the possibilities of this right here. He's either for profit, he's totally blind. You know, some of us believe that there's a conspiracy in Idaho and the university is involved in this horrendous tragedy some way. We believe that. I'm one of them. I don't care how, I'm sorry if you disagree. It's not that I don't care. I don't want to be mean, but I don't care if you are upset that I disagree about you believing that the university and the town has nothing to do with it. I do. In some way, I believe they do. So he's part of that, or he's trying to drive a narrative about how he retells his account of the Idaho 4 tragedy. Or this guy's just a very sincere person who's honestly just sharing something that happened during his lifetime while he was writing the book from the most honest place in his heart. And that was my final conclusion. And it was based on all that I gave y'all about, hey man, True Crime Plunder just came off as a very credible person, believable, an honest person. Therefore, if she's assessing this guy's, whatever the information as honest and credible, it just comes with the weight of credibility. So I'm saying, without even reading the book, I believe she was saying exactly what he said in the book. And I believe that she was saying it exactly how he said it, doing her best and a very good job, I would say, at communicating what he was communicating with the words he wrote in that book. And it seemed like this was a sincere guy coming from an honest place. So maybe he's a good actor, but I would say my final assessment of that is this guy, if the university and the town, like I believe, I just said it several times, are involved, he just comes off as like he has no idea. Like, I don't know anything about that, you know what I mean? He comes off as one of them guys who, and I know people like this. I'm one of them in many ways. The world could be falling around and everybody could be running. He'd be like, what's going on? Like, we're so locked into what we have going on, and sometimes we're so, I'm going to be honest with you, we're klutzes, like we're real live Urkels, you know what I mean? We're klutzy and we're bubble-minded. We just totally are unaware of what's going on around us. And he comes off like one of those guys. So is he just acting? If the university is involved, like some of us believe, the way he speaks freely about the Idaho, tragedy and in detail, I would think during the course of him writing that somebody, because, if they're involved, we have this hierarchy of who's pulling the strings. And I would think somebody higher than him pulling the strings would say to him, hey, you can do this with the book and you can say this in the book, but you can't say this and you can't say that. Am I just being crazy here? Is anybody following me? And either somebody was pulling his strings or he spoke freely. And honestly, the way True Crime Plunder spoke about what he wrote, I believe what she said, I believe what he said. It didn't seem like anybody was pulling his strings. It seemed like he was just sharing his experience from an honest place in his heart. So if the university is involved, I don't think this guy is. How does that happen? I don't know. There were a lot of other things that they said that made me think, okay, well, hell yeah, it's a perfect motive for y'all to be involved. When he got there, he said the director or whoever is over, the financial department told them they only had 18 months worth of funding left. Now, he tells us this is the only place where I was like, something doesn't sound right. When he got there, they only had 18 months worth of funding left, but very shortly, in the next couple of either semesters or years, the everything went up. The money went up. He made a plan to save so many millions of dollars, so everything went up. Enrollment went up, the profit went up, everything went up. But I mean, the whole fact that you only had 18 months, and I wouldn't even known that, we wouldn't have known that. You communicated that, and you also communicated to us how much of an emergency that was. I mean, yeah, it would fit the motive that you guys had to get somebody the police department had to help you guys get someone collared for this crime, because if no one was caught, everybody was talking about how hell all of the students who went to school there had already went back home. Well, the large majority of them. So it was definitely going to be hard for you guys to get new students to enroll when your current students are scared to be here for every good reason. So it does benefit you to go ahead and get someone arrested for this crime. And I'm having to believe, all you financial gurus out there, help me here. The college doesn't just pay like the college. I'm thinking, I've lived in college towns before. The college brings industry to the place where it's at, the entire city, the entire town. So therefore, if the college is affected, then the entire town is affected. So yeah, that's a huge reason for you guys to want someone collared for this crime, whether it's the right person or the wrong one. There's a financial benefit there. Now, am I reaching way out there with the conspiracy theory? I don't know. I'm just saying I ask myself questions because I think too much. And these are some of the ones that I ask myself. And since I'm asking myself, is the university involved? Because they do have a motive to be financial, if nothing else. Then this guy, the president of the university, is he involved? But then the way that he writes his book, he sounds like totally clueless to anything that's going on. So did they just let him run? They were not, if they're involved now, I have to ask myself, were they not worried at all about him being possibly saying something that would jeopardize it? I don't know, man. It's a million questions. And like I told you guys, I'm just sharing my thoughts. Because I can't believe the university is involved like I do. And like I know some of you guys do. And not question anything the president is doing, specifically writing a book. Like, okay, we think they're involved. He's writing a book and he's talking about the tragedy in there. We got to see what's going on here. Now, this may be something you guys have already up on, but I'm like True Crime Plunder. I knew nothing about the book till Lil T jumped in the comment section. Shout out to her. And, suggested I watch these 2 videos. Let me look at my notes and see what else I got. Okay, so one interesting but unrelated fact is the president's family owned the property. Now, I'm pretty sure they specifically said property, like that house may not have been there when they owned it. I don't know if, a house or whatever was there before got torn down and that was rebuilt. I don't know, but I just specifically remember, and I could be wrong here, that they said they owned the property, not specifically the house, you know what I mean? But that was decades ago, and the way he described it, and I haven't heard anybody talking about it. That was just a totally unrelated but very interesting fact. It's in no way related to the crime. There have been no links. There have been no ties. Nobody's suggesting anything. It's just one of those like, wow, that's, kind of, ironic, creepy, spooky, whatever you want to say. So that's one thing that stuck out. What does the book mean in relation to the tragedy is something I had wrote here. And I think I pretty much said it, man, in detail. I think I've already answered that question in detail without even asking it. And now I just asked it at the end of my notes. Once again, I'm just puzzled because the way he sounds so clueless about any university. He doesn't sound like, okay, if I knew that, whether I was involved or not, if I knew something I was connected that closely to was involved in something so criminal or possibly detrimental, I myself, would just be hesitant and very careful about what I said and how I said it. And then I would think that the people who knew that I knew what happened, and I was, I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm not saying nothing or raising any red flags. I think they would probably want to reach out to me and be like, hey, we heard you were doing this, and try to at least pick my brain to see what I'm going to say and if it's possibly going to, put them in a bad light. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much here, but he didn't give that off. He didn't give off that anybody had told him he can and can't say certain things, and he didn't give off that he was worried at all about saying something that could jeopardize anybody. He seemed like a man that was speaking honestly. Does that mean that there aren't any context clues that could help solve the case in what he wrote in that book about his experience and his remembrance? No, it very well could be if the right person hears or reads the right thing, or picks his brain the right way. That could be information that could blow this crime wide open. But for my eyes, I can say, hell, you guys, you might be the person that can hear what he said and, oh, you know what, this right here blows everything apart. Anything is possible. Stranger things have happened. But in my mind, I don't see any. Maybe I need to read the book myself. I think this is him speaking about the tragedy, I think, if I remember correctly, True Crime Plunder said it was only one chapter. It's not like in the book is multiple chapters. I mean, multiple chapters. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was only one chapter. I don't think, it definitely wasn't a large percentage of the book. So it's not like there's a lot to read if you're focusing on that. But I don't know, maybe if I read that verbatim myself, I would see things that would make me say, well, yeah, this means something. But when the question is, what does it mean in relation to the tragedy, the crime that happened, the 4 lives that were taken? Does it mean anything? Does it mean nothing? Does it mean a lot? For me, I don't see anything there. You know what I mean? It's just like the no disrespect to anybody, but it's like if you're older, you remember back in the day, you always maybe have an older lady in the neighborhood or something. Sometimes it might be an older man, but they're older, so they don't work anymore. Not full time, so they're around all the time. So they're always hearing and seeing everything that goes on. And then if you have an opportunity to sit down and listen, they'll tell you everything in the neighborhood. But their recounting of anything won't be significant because they didn't really see or know anything like that, especially criminal or anything. And I know some of those ladies did, but I'm just being very general here. They can only tell you what they're telling you, and they're not telling you even to tell anything. They're just telling you because they're there and they see everything, and that's kind of what they do. There's no information there, and that's what I'm kind of saying. That what I got from True Crime Plunder about this young man's book, there's no information in his retelling of the tragedy that happened in Idaho. But I think it's interesting, though, and I don't think it's something that needs to be looked over, because for a lot of you guys who have more time and things, you can dig, and you do dig deeper into these things. And like I said, you find nuggets that, hell, someone like me, a creator like me, we have looked at this video or read this book or heard this audio 30 times and we didn't see it, but here you come and you have time to dig. And so I think we may have the tendency to believe that everybody knows everything going on about this case, but a lot of times, I know this in my career, a lot of the failures and the bumps in the road comes because communication is broken and information isn't shared it doesn't get where it needs to get. So I think when we have things like this, it is good to spread the word. Hey, did you know that book was out there? Did you know that book was out there? Hey, did you hear that this about it? Not rumorously. I don't like that. We grown as people. We ain't got no reason to be out here gossiping. But, in responsible ways. You know what I mean? Like police just add new information to their investigative, journey. And so I think we do just need to disseminate information. So, a lot of people maybe like me didn't know the book was out there. So what do you think about it if you knew it was out there? And if you didn't, are you interested in at least hearing, True Crime's Plunder's review of it, or even buying and reading the book yourself? Because that's something else she did. She encouraged a lot. Hey, man, go buy this book. It's very good. And I don't think I don't know. Maybe this guy, I didn't get the impression that, the president or somebody over there had offered her anything to keep saying this. She just seems like an avid book reader who's giving her honest opinion of a book that she read. So yeah, what do you think? You interested in buying the book or hearing her review? Do you think it's pertinent to the case, the one or the very few chapters in it that he spoke about the tragedy? Or do you think, hey man, this is not really anything? All right, before I get up out of here, man, there's some breaking news and some other cases that just make me turn, you have to reassess our justice system, which I'm constantly doing. I don't know how many of you guys have heard of or even keeping up with the YSL trial. I'm not going to get into details about that. If you know, you know. If you don't, I'm sorry. It may interest you enough to go find out. But yeah, it's going on in Georgia, my hometown, my state. And recently in the case, the state has decided to request from the judge that the cameras be taken out of the courtroom. Now, what they're saying has happened is that some of the witnesses, and I don't remember if they said some of the jurors too, because I remember there was a time when they said it was an accident, but the camera spanned toward, the jury box, and it did, some of the jurors' faces were on there, like very clearly. I seen it. You can see a few of them, not all of them. But yeah, I don't know if they said the jurors had been threatened, but they said the state is saying some of their witnesses have been threatened. And so for that reason alone, they want the cameras taken out of the courtroom. Now, the courtroom has been filming this entire trial. But now the state doesn't want them there, and I think they're saying, okay, audio is fine, control audio is fine, but yeah, and then even in the audio, they want the witnesses' names to be, censored, because they're saying that some of that. Now, is this really going on, or is this just a tactic by it? I mean, it could be either or. It could be going on, or it could be a tactic by the state because they see it's going to benefit their case. They feel they need to, take this opportunity to make, it's a chess move, and they feel like this is their next best move, or one of them. Or is it a real thing? How would I know? How would you know? I don't know unless you're involved down there in Georgia. But it just makes me wonder, like, I don't know, like, where is the firmness in our justice system? Now, do we just want an absolutely rigid justice system? And I'm more so asking myself that question than you guys. No, absolutely not. But sometimes it seems the wiggle room that our justice system has is a disadvantage to justice, and therefore us citizens, because any of us could at any given time be defended whether we did something or not. You want a rigid fairness, and the wiggle room that our justice has to just do this or do that on its own and at its own discretion, it scares me sometimes. I guess that when I heard that the state was requesting that, that's the thought that I had. Like, it's just scary. Not just this, because I've heard of too many things where the courts can just decide, which is my last and final point. In the Chad Daybell case, this one blows my mind off, but it falls into the same category of, it scares me for our justice system. I don't want a rigid justice system, but I do want rigid justice. Like, we just can't wiggle. We have to go to the path that most clearly leads to justice, and it doesn't seem like the wiggle room our justice system has always provides that. And this last point, I hope it unpacks that more for you guys to see what I'm saying. So Chad Daybell's attorney has requested to not be on the case. Okay, so I'm finding this out. Oh man, I didn't write this young man's names down, but Lil T, I've been seeing throughout this entire video, suggested 2 videos to me. I told you True Crime Plunders was the first one. I just gave you guys a 25-30 minute review of that. And now I'm about to tell you about a second video, and I'm almost done. But I didn't write his name down. His name was Scott, True Crime with Scott or something like that. It was a good video too. He covered several cases. Each one he gave 3 to 5 minutes or something like that. 30-minute video. And if I remember, I will put both of those videos in the description. But yeah, he was saying how Chad Daybell, his case is a death penalty case, his attorney, and Scott is an attorney too, you know what I mean? So when we talk about his legal opinion, I want you to know it's coming from an informative and professional place. He's saying Chad Daybell's attorney has requested to withdraw from the case. He doesn't want to be the attorney anymore. Now, it's a lot of legalese mumbo jumbo that Scott said, not disrespecting him, but if you want the details there, Scott, I'm gonna remember to put it in the description. He can tell you, the legalese. But he was saying, okay, he asked in a particular way that almost assured he wouldn't get what he was asking, when he could have simply asked in this way that he was well aware of, and it would have just as assuredly got him what he was asking for. So you knew that you was asking in the worst way possible, but you still asked as if this was the route that you should take, when that was a clear route that would have left no confusion or possibilities in the air, but you get what you want. Okay, cool. Like I said, you have to get that from him. So Scott Daybell's attorney doesn't want to be his attorney anymore, but the judge forces him to, right? The judge doesn't, grant his request to withdraw from the case. Now, this is where Scott's, experience comes in at, and professionalism comes in at. He begins to describe how Chad Daybell's death penalty lawyer, defense attorney, has asked to be off of the case, and how this guy, who's only one person, is handling a death penalty case. And Scott tells us death penalty cases usually at minimum have 2 attorneys and then experts and investigative teams, I think, to help at minimum. And this guy appears to be doing all of it alone. This is Scott's words, not mine. But once again, Scott doesn't come off like he's lying either. Anybody could be mistaken. I don't know. You can dig into that if you want to, but he's telling us what's going on. And he's saying, long story short, without it, go get the details from him, the judge is demanding that this case go forward, and he's the one that has the authority to, when everyone knows all they're doing is setting Chad Daybell up, if he's found guilty and convicted, to just say, hey man, my attorney wasn't equipped and prepared. Like, everyone knows this. You have to follow me here, guys, please. I'm almost done. I'm sorry the video's so long if it offends you. The justice system knows we're just setting up another trial in this case, because ineffective assistance of counsel can happen when the attorney has done every damn thing they can do. When your attorney is underprepared because he doesn't have enough people on his team, and he's also asking to not even be your attorney anymore for his own reasons, how is it conceivable that we can carry forward with this trial? Let me add a little practicality here and logic. If he is convicted, they're right. I'm no legal expert in any regard, but yes, this is common sense. They're right. Of every criminal, every convicted criminal has a right to an appeal, especially when they have great grounds for appeal. You have a right when you have not even communicated your grounds, but you have to have great grounds, when you get there to win. But you have a right to an appeal when you have it comes with it. You definitely have a great chance of on your appeal and beating it when everybody knew beforehand that your attorney was literally under-prepared and under-equipped. So in my mind, I began to think that is going to have to go to, the time on this case is going to have to go to appellate court. The justice system is going to have to grant the time to this case, whether they do it here or whether they do it there. Why continue the case to appellate court? It costs us more money or whatever. It's just stupid. Why not just stay right here and say, okay, do what you need to do to get prepared. I don't know about him withdrawing from the case. That's the legalese that you guys got to get from Scott. Does he need to stay on the case? Does he need to withdraw? I don't know. We just know, logically speaking, that if these are the perimeters that these cases usually exist inside of, generally speaking, an attorney is telling us these are the parameters for these cases when you usually see them. We can take his word. He's a professional. He's experienced. But over here is the most minimal reflection of that. Then we know everything is not right for justice to take. This isn't frigid justice here. This is wiggle room for our justice system to just pass the buck along and cost us more money and more time in it. Just keep it right here until we have whoever it is, keep it right here until we have an attorney that's fully equipped and fully prepared, or at least has the appearance of being that. You got this guy right here on one leg, and you're trying to put him on the all-star team and tell him that he has to perform like the rest of the players. It makes no sense. That's not how the game goes. So maybe I was just ranting there, but I told you those last two stories about Chad Daybell and about the YSL case in Georgia because I'm already so how does this tie back to the Brian Kohlberger? My biggest faith in Brian Kohlberger's innocence, number one besides his attorney, is you guys. I just like everybody else, I watch on social media and I see the ones who are committed to whatever side of the coin they falling on. And you do have people that are committed to the Brian is absolutely innocent and framed or whatever. You got that squad. You got the squad that Brian is absolutely guilty. And then you have, people like me who okay, we lean maybe one way or the other depending on how the wind is blowing, but we're in the middle. We don't know. We've been saying it consistently. So I watch everybody. And what I'm logically aware of is that these are the people that the jury pool will come from. So that's my biggest confidence in Brian getting justice if he's innocent. I know a lot of people think, the media has tainted the public's perception of this case so much that there can be no coming back from it. And I understand why you would feel like that, but I'm just logical. I look at the landscape and say, okay, I may feel like this, I may draw this conclusion, but does reality say that? And to me, reality doesn't say that. Reality says to me, whether they're the majority, the minority, or it's almost equal, give or take. There are people out there like me who need to be convinced more. There are people out there who are convinced Brian is absolutely innocent, just like I don't see one majority, even if in the media it appears to be that way. The media is not the totality of what a jury pool will be taken from. It's the public sector. And in the public sector, I don't see anything that makes me think I need to fear for Brian's life or safety or freedom if the decision is left solely in the hands of the jury. You know what I mean? And I know we've had horrible jurors before. I know the percentages, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. From what I've seen, I'm comfortable with the percentages that if the decision is left solely in the hands of the jurors, based on what we know now, Brian will get a fair shake. You know what I mean? And sometimes life isn't fair, but I'm not worried that he would just get like, oh my God, there's no way that they would, it's just over for him. I'm not worried about that if the decision is left solely in the hands of the jurors. What I'm worried about is the court system being able to wiggle. If there's no frigid judicial process. Now, I want to say this, I'm about to get out of here. I want frigid justice. I don't want a frigid judicial process. But they got way too much wiggle room, and this is the perfect example. A young lady murdered her father. She did it. There's no, however you feel, whether you feel like he didn't do anything to her, but I guess some of you guys say because he wouldn't go to a dance and he wouldn't, take her out on her birthday, that's abuse, and that's what he did to her to make her kill him. Either way, she murdered her father. The jury found her guilty, and the judge, in the sentencing guidelines, it was legal for them to do this. This is the wiggle room I'm talking about. Sent her home. She didn't even go to prison. She got found guilty of murdering her father. The judge let her go home. No, I got a better example. The one I told y'all we was going to come back to.
NBC4's Comrade Dickerson joins us live from the Ventura County Courthouse with the outrage from the family of the man killed and what the prosecutor has to say. Karma.
Yes, that man killed was just 26 years old, stabbed 108 times by a then 27-year-old woman. Now, the prosecutor wanted jail time. The man's family wanted jail time, but a judge disagreed.
When this woman was wheeled mumbling and bloody from a Thousand Oaks apartment in May of 2018, all that was clear publicly at the time was that she was hurt and a man was dead. It would turn out that she, Bryn Spetcher, killed the man, Chad O'Melia, in a marijuana-induced psychotic state. And Tuesday, a judge decided she would not serve any prison time for doing it.
This guy just gave everybody in this county a license to kill people after they smoked marijuana.
That was Chad O'Melia's father, Sean O'Melia's reaction when he heard Spetcher was sentenced to probation. Not an appropriate end, as he sees it, to the events that unfolded that night.
She inhaled, and then from that point on, she went into a psychotic state shortly thereafter. She picked up 3 different knives from his kitchen, and she slaughtered him, penetrating every major organ, all over his body, his face.
Spetcher stabbed O'Melia, the man she was dating, over 100 times.
Make it make sense. For me, those type of things, it doesn't matter the gender or any of that. If you get found guilty, that's just a little too much wiggle room for me for the sentencing guidelines to be the judge can let you go home. That doesn't make sense to me. Unless it's clear that that person was in, like, if we know this person was innocent, they shouldn't even been there anyway. Yeah, cool. But if there's any possibility that you did it, like we know this young lady did it, it could have been a young man murdering his dad or whatever. We know you did it, and they found you guilty of it. That's why they found you guilty, because we know you did it, but the judge let you go home. That's the kind of stuff that scares me. And now I wonder, is there some type of wiggle room when we're talking about cases like Brian? Even if everybody, like the judge not demanding for seems an eternity for the prosecution to turn over evidence so Ann can be prepared to represent her client. Things like that. And other things that I don't even have the knowledge and experience to speak to, that could just absolutely work against an innocent person, man. We've seen it happen time and time again. So I just said all that to say, yeah, I've been thinking about how frightening it is, the wiggle room our justice system has. And sometimes it leads to what we know happens. Shout out to the Innocent Project and all those that do that kind of work. Well, we need these guys, because a lot of times our justice system just gets it wrong. Sometimes it's unintentional. Sometimes it's very malicious. Sometimes it's just irresponsible. But we need to do our best to, in the words of Sarah Palin, who I'm no great fan of, we need to shore up all of those gaps, man. We can't just have them gaps out there, because we're talking about people's lives, we're talking about people's freedoms, we're talking about leaving the community still safe and unsafe and violent crimes, because when we get the wrong person, the right people who are clearly dangerous are still walking the streets. We're talking about generations of people when we get the wrong people, because this man could have had kids, and his kids could have had kids, this woman could have had kids, or kids could have had kids, so it's just ultra important for us to get these things right. And I just think there are some things in our justice system that is clearly like they need to be deviated from. So I don't know, maybe they're working on those type of things. God is in control of all. I hope everything is well with you guys. I did not intend for this video to be 40 minutes, but I rambled so long it is. Shout out to you if you stayed to the end. We're not going anywhere. When there are great developments in the case, you guys will hear from me. Other than that, I'm always available by email. If you ask Lil T, if you hit me up in the comments, I'm gonna respond. I see those things for the 50 billionth time. I just don't want to be creating content to be in that, and you know, I'm not trying to insult anyone, but I don't want to be in that demographic that's just trying to for profit any tragedy, including this one. So I'm not going to be making a bunch of videos just to make videos. It's not my thing. Y'all be good, man. Felt like coming home. Innocent until.